Now, for more on electronics turned collectibles, I'm joined by Scott Schober, cybersecurity expert and CEO of Berkeley Varitronics Systems. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again.
So, Scott, give us some context here. How does the Apple collectible payday compare with, say, traditional investment vehicles like gold or even Apple stock?
Well, certainly you could do a lot better, especially if you keep it in pristine condition. That's really the key. You keep the original packaging and you keep it in perfect shape. You can fetch a lot of value for it, hundreds of times more than perhaps the price of gold. Even Apple stock, although Apple stock is doing very well for the year and will continue to grow, in my opinion, in value. But these collectibles, you really have to keep them in great condition, and you'll just see the prices soar. I even myself have Generation 1, Generation 2 iPods that I'm holding on to just as a collector keepsake, and there's a lot of nostalgia there and a lot of value that people will have with it.
And speaking of that nostalgia, is that really more what it's about, or are people really holding on to these things in hopes of that big payday?
You know, you make a great point. I think for myself personally, it's not about the monetary value, but more the nostalgia. I think about Atari game systems and cartridges. I think about the early generation Apple products. What we do is, as we grow up in a certain generation, we associate to that technology, and it's exciting. And we think about the memories and the feelings associated to it, and it makes us feel good inside. And that's probably more the reason why we hold on to it. We don't want to let those memories slip away. And that's a big part of the nostalgia. It just happens to be a plus. If you keep it in good shape, it's also worth a lot of money decades later, which is great.
Now, there's a lot of old technology out there, but it does seem that it's Apple products that really seem to bring in the big money. We have original iPods, as we saw, selling for thousands of dollars on these auction sites. Do you think interest in Apple's old product, is it overhyped, is it overvalued, or is it where it should be?
No, I don't think it's overvalued, but again, think about the way that Apple creates products. There's a look and a feel that we associate to it that makes us want to buy it and buy the next generation. So every year or two, we're buying the next rev product. So there's a very loyal customer base, and we keep going back for more and more. Just look at with the iPhones, with over 1 billion iPhones used globally. It's an amazing amount of people that will sign up for the next generation iPhone. They're going to get an iPhone 7. They're already talking about an iPhone 8. That's customer loyalty, and you have that beautiful nostalgia that's associated to it. Loyal customers to come back to the well for years to come.
Now, I'm a big fan of nostalgia. I myself still have my original Nintendo console with all my games, and I'm still holding on to it daily. So what about other products and companies that are really gaining that competitive edge when it comes to vintage tech?
Well, there's a lot there. I mean, even myself, growing up in the 1980s, my father was the vice president of the labs for Atari, doing research on all the gaming systems. So myself and my brother, we grew up, we had tons of games and gaming systems. The Atari 2600, the Atari 5200, the computers, the 400, the 800. We lived and breathed on those, and we collected every game cartridge. And when we think about it, game cartridges back in the 80s, that was amazing. Everybody was collecting game cartridges. In fact, just the silicone, half of the silicone that was used globally was for game cartridges. Everybody was buying them, and everybody was holding on to them, and they still do to some degree today.
Now, Scott, for people who have decided this is a great time for me to start selling, we know that eBay was like the place to go when it comes to reselling these things, but now we have a lot of startups offering that more personal touch, especially when it comes to things like nostalgia. How do you think that's going to change how consumers sell their items?
Well, it certainly will to some extent. There's going to be more and more places that you can buy these online eBay-like stores. But what's also going to happen, segments like this, what will truly happen is people will go in their attics and their basement, they're going to pull out their old iPods, their Ataris, their Nintendos, and they're going to sell them at auction, garage sales, on eBay, you name it. And it's good to shop first to see what the value is before you take a chance and try to sell it on the cheap or price it too high. So you got to do a little bit of research before you do that. But it's buying and selling will become more popular, certainly as people talk about it and they realize how much nostalgia and value there is to these products. It's wonderful.
Indeed, I'll certainly be holding on to mine. Thank you so much, Scott Schober, cybersecurity expert and CEO of Berkeley Varitronics Systems.